So to let you all know, there's only going to be one presentation in this session. The other presenter did not confirm. We waited till the very last minute to figure out if he was coming, but he isn't. So it's going to be Emily, but Emily has enough material. This is a really cool project. We've had it shared with our students in our EdTech program at Montreal. Emily's with the National Film Board, and she's going to be talking about the Ocean School and the work she's doing there. So Emily, take it away.
Thanks for the introduction, Saul. Welcome, everybody. Since we have a wealth of time in this session, I do want to invite you to ask questions, as we go. This doesn't have to be a one-way conversation. But today I'm going to be showing you a little behind the scenes look at how we design an interactive for Ocean School, and hopefully have some moments to stop and chat about supporting inquiry in online environments. So I'm going to share my screen. So the title of my presentation is Extra Misleading. So is that a whale in your classroom? Designing immersive media for inquiry-based learning. And we're going to start off just with a little bit about Ocean School. I'm going to talk to you about the process behind one of our interactives, which is a virtual reality experience that you can use on your browser. It's for free, it's online, and it was paid for by the Canadian taxpayer. So please check it out. I'm also going to share some resources about inquiry-based learning to sort of help continue the conversation after we close up here. So I'm Emily Sheepy. I'm a producer at NFB's Ocean School, and it's a project that's been online for nearly 3 years now. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So Ocean School is a collaboration between Dalhousie University and the National Film Board, with support from numerous sponsors, Prince of Monaco Foundation, IOC UNESCO, and a few others. And we make a lot of documentary content, short videos that are for youth ages 11 to 17-ish, plus or minus a few years, depending on the ambitions of their parents, teachers, and themselves. But we also include immersive and interactive experiences such as 360 videos and 2 augmented reality experiences. Okay, so in terms of immersive media, the things that we have are augmented reality, virtual reality, and immersive video. Although a year ago when I was planning this presentation, I thought, oh, I'm going to show off our whale. But I think that this year has taught us a lot about the accessibility of some of these sort of emerging technologies for education. I'll share a secret, and it's that AR is not super accessible for kids learning at home. So I decided to shift away from focusing on our whale and to talk instead today about our VR experience, which is called Dive Detectives. So a little bit more about Ocean School. As I said, it's for sort of the middle school grades, and early high school. We know that folks are using it as young as grade 4 and as high as the end of high school. It's free. There are more than 60 pieces of media. And one of the things that we have been pushing really hard to provide is virtual reality and immersive video in the browser. So no need to download, no need for devices other than, you know, your internet connected machine. And the initial scope of the project was really just the website itself, but as the project matured and we began working with teachers, we realized we'd have to provide a lot more support. And so we ended up developing an entire help center to sort of accompany our content that has how-to guides and lesson plans and other supporting resources that we realized sort of once the beast was online had become really important for supporting teacher experience because of our commitment to an inquiry-based learning model. And I'm going to pause my share for a moment here so I can see. So one of the main missions of Ocean School is to sort of bring the experience of the ocean and into people's homes and into the classroom so that they can sort of develop a personal connection, not just with the ocean, but with the ways in which we learn about the ocean. So developing inquiry skills, helping people sort of engage their curiosity and follow their own lead, you know, to ask questions that they're interested in and do projects, especially sort of action-oriented projects, you know, that have a real world consequences. So what we have done is try to develop a lot of activities that, as much as possible, sort of incorporate real data or sort of authentic experiences with projects, you know, so that you might, for example, see a conservationist at work and then in the class, you know, do a project where you sort of mimic what that person was doing, use them as a model, but also sort of do your own planning and take your own approach. So I wanted to take a moment, it's hard to engage with, with a bunch of black screens. So I did want to pause and just invite anyone in the room, if you have any questions at this point, to go ahead and ask. And if we don't have questions, I'm going to actually show you the website. We good? Okay. So I'm just going to go back to my share here. And hopefully you are seeing an example of our immersive videos. This is a video called Sharks Are Awesome. And I turned off the audio because that it has, it can lead to unpleasant experiences on Zoom. This video is focused on shark anatomy and their adaptations to survive in the wild. And as you can see, you can actually use it in the browser. There's also, if you open it on your phone, you can use it that way as well. And so this is the kind of thing that we're hoping to bring to light these open ocean environments. So it's pretty cool. Sorry, my computer is not being very cooperative here. I'm going to go back to my presentation. So to sort of deepen logo learning for each of our pieces of media, such as Sharks Are Awesome, we provide a variety of sort of prepackaged activities, and they all center on focus questions. So inquiry questions that the students can either research on their own or work together to produce some sort of product, whether it be a visualization, a comic book, a presentation, or perhaps some sort of action project, like a beach cleanup. So just two examples from our Open Ocean module. We have a Google Earth activity where you actually can look at shark tracking data that was shared with us by a scientist who was featured in the films, and or Sharks Are Awesome, which had a superhero comic activity, which is lots of fun actually to do in the online setting. Okay, so I'm going to focus the next part of this talk on dive detectives, which is sort of an interesting experience. And I want to show you now. So Dive Detectives is a cooperative VR experience. So the idea is that there's sort of the captain of the boat who can move it around, and a diver who uses the VR to look around under the water. And the team is on a mission. So they have enough air for the diver to dive 10 times, which was, our device for making sure that folks actually got to do the activity in class. And there's information kind of hidden within the interface that could give you some clues as to where certain migratory animals might like to go when they visit this tropical island, which is Cocos Island, just off the coast of Costa Rica. So the mission is to find out where do the scalloped hammerheads, green sea turtles, and manta rays go. And along the way, the idea is that the team is going to practice some systematic observation. So they can, as they dive, make note of, the clarity of the water. What's at the bottom? Is it rocky? Is there coral? Is there sand? Is there a lot of life or not a lot of life? And the idea is that through diving around this environment, they'll be able to notice certain patterns in the abundance of life close to and far away from the underwater mountain chain, which is so important to life in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. So underwater mountains and islands, there's a lot of nutrients there. There are lots of places for creatures to live. And so these areas are of great importance for conservation. And so the goal is to, instructionally, is to support the students in sort of a game-like way as they observe these different environments and see why they are important to the creatures that live there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the design process. So this piece is part of a larger module called Marine Migration, which is focused on not just on sharks, but also on sea turtles, and how their migratory patterns are now being addressed in conservation efforts. And this whole module is organized around 3 focus questions. The first is what shapes the patterns of species migration. There's also how do we study migratory species? And finally, how do we protect critical habitat for migratory species? So Dive Detectives is really focused on it's as an example of a critical habitat that students can experience even in their chair at their desk. So we start off when developing these by creating a brief. We identify the sorts of learning outcomes and competencies we'd like to address. We make flow charts. This is an interesting brief actually, because where we ended up with the interactive is almost nothing like where we started. But we'll do things like sketch little pictures to show to the developers to see what they think is going to be possible with the technology that we have. And of course, because we're committed to delivering virtual reality in a browser without special equipment, it's important to us that that the performance not suffer too much, because if you try to model every little thing that there is under the sea, no one is going to be able to load your experience and use it at home. And so we always have to be mindful of the classroom environment where, the Wi-Fi may not be great. So we have production meetings and we trade back and forth sort of sketches and design concepts. We also, with our science producers, explore a lot of real data, and a real challenge for us as a team is to sort of figure out, to what extent do we need the simulation to be realistic? So here we have a little concept map where we're trying to show what important species we want to depict and how they relate to each other and where around the island they should be. So the science producers have a lot of work at this point. So they provide image references, species references, and any of the data that we're going to use. And that can be a really long process, especially if it involves contacting scientists for their data or getting validation of our simulations. Because ultimately what we have to do is reduce the complexity of the thing so that enough that kids will be able to sort of figure out the important relationships that we're trying to illustrate. The next step, sort of a concurrent step, is that the education producers like me start working on providing the context that around the interactive. So creating the activity that comes with it, the student lesson plan, as well as a guide to using the app. So showing how to use the interface and so on. We develop lessons for our interactives, especially because they are so complex and there's a pretty high investment of resources into these. So we want to provide as much support as possible. We also use these sort of as flagship products. So we develop outreach workshops for science centers and museums or for teachers to do sort of one-off experiences. And so sometimes we create sort of supporting materials such as this field guide, which is actually a printable resource that comes with it, which really is sort of a small book describing the environment that the environments that you can visit in the experience, as well as providing facts about the the species that you see, and in this case, the scientists that collaborated with us to create this experience. So this all is produced by us. The next stage for our development process is validation and testing. So initially we do sort of a beta testing phase where it's just a team, but we also test in the field, sometimes with students, sometimes with university students. So Concordia's ed tech program actually has hosted us before to have some students click through our stuff and report sort of problems that they found. At this point, the images and data are also double checked by the sort of science experts on the team. Meanwhile, the education team is trying to ensure that the learning objectives of the interactive remain intact after all the changes that inevitably result. As an example, we once made a very complex simulation of an underwater environment at an oyster farm, but where we were trying to show, the impact of pollutants on the growth of the underwater seagrass. There are actually too many variables to control in our proposed model, and so we had to really scale it back. Once we had observed that students were really struggling with figuring out what we wanted. So of critical importance to us in sort of supporting the inquiry is creating the context for the learning. So teachers that choose to use the prepackaged activities could sort of prime their students to think about the challenge that they will complete afterwards as they go into the experience. So in this case, this is sort of aimed at younger students who might be less engaged in the sort of data analysis potential of the piece, but their challenge is to put together an argument to protect the island region and use their observation notes to justify their opinion. And we include moments of reflection. So for example, where did you observe each of these endangered species as you were diving? We provide our activities in digital format, so Google Slides, and we provide these sort of scaffolding templates. So for example, for argumentation, there's sort of a flow chart that, or a graphic organizer to support the learning. And then it's also accompanied by a lesson plan for the teachers, which provides a lot of the background that one might need in order to introduce the interactive or to answer questions about the patterns that you would observe. So for example, we explain just a little bit about nutrient runoff. So the island is a tropical rainforest. Water carries the nutrients down into the water. And that's why lots of things like to live near the island. So these are the kinds of supports that we would provide. A new step that we are taking with these extended pieces is to do more design workshops with teachers who help us by suggesting ideas or by reviewing and testing the activities and lessons plans with their classes. So here is an example of a set of questions that were developed by Alyssa, who's one of our sort of teacher champions. So she has provided many suggestions of questions that the teacher might open a lesson with to sort of activate prior knowledge. What does migration mean to you? Or even, have you been diving before? What was it like? What did you see? these kinds of framing questions that can help the first to just capture the learner's interest, but also to help the teacher kind of assess how much support they're going to need in terms of covering background information before sort of sending the kids in to do their exploration. These are just some screenshots from the interactive. If you find one of the endangered animals in the VR, you can sort of scan it and get some information back about the animal and who tagged it and where it came from. At the bottom of the screen, I wanted to highlight that provide different parameters that may be of interest to teachers and learners as extensions to the activity. Our main activity is sort of simpler because we try to appeal especially to the middle school grades. But there is the option to explore the relationship between depth, the abundance of life, which here we're providing as sort of a biodiversity index, the amount of chlorophyll, so the amount of food in the water, plant life, as well as the actual location that the diving team is exploring. And at the end of the experience, you actually get a spreadsheet of all of that data from each of your 10 dives, which opens up a lot of possibilities for exploration within a class where you're actually comparing the different experiences that different teams had. I'm going to come out of my screen share just to see how you all are doing. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask right now?
So yeah, I'm curious. So you did this project in conjunction with the NFB, is that correct?
So this is an NFB project. So it started about 5 years ago.
Okay.
There was like an NFB producer who was next door neighbors with the professor, Dalhousie professor, who has now become our science director. And they thought, wouldn't it be great to make an educational product that would sort of, bring the ocean to the classroom? And they managed to make it happen. So a lot of the scientists that we work with, some of them are based at Dell, but we're sort of expanding our network to work with more researchers from across the country, which has been an interesting journey.
So are you yourself based at Dell? Or are you based at the NFB or?
I'm at the NFB in Montreal.
Okay. And then, so seeing as you're at the NFB, what does that process look like then if there are educators that are interested in building sort of, immersive media projects?
We don't actually, we're sort of an unusual project within NFB.
Well, that's why I was asking, because I'd never seen the NFB do something like this. So I was really curious.
So we were initially housed within the creativity and innovation sort of area because a lot of NFB education is sort of, they create teacher materials to support things that were made for other reasons. So sort of creative projects, documentary films. Ocean School is different just because we're producing original content that is explicitly for education.
Yeah.
And there are 2 more projects at NFB that are now producing sort of original content for education. One is Media School, which is like a media literacy thing. And the other is the Indigenous Voices Project, which is creating more content about featuring different Indigenous communities across Canada. But for people to actually get involved, I mean, we invite people from time to time. A lot of it is actually through networking. So sometimes scientists have reached out to us. For teachers, we sort of distribute calls periodically through the NFB education newsletter, and also just through folks we've met at conferences, like, and anyone who's on our list at this point will hear from us once in a while. We also have a sort of advisory committee of teachers who meet with us once a month. So we just, have a Zoom call, we bounce ideas off of them. Sometimes they will take activities that we've made and try them with their classes and let us know what didn't go well. That's been a really, really helpful process that we actually sort of been adding more feedback steps into our production because we've been finding them so valuable. These are sort of big, expensive projects, so it's good to have validation. Like,
well, when I was noticing that, especially like when you were going into all the details on the teams and everything like that, and I'm like, okay, this is not small. And now you have an AR aspect to the project, and I didn't get, because I didn't see that part of it. Are you using gaming engines for building it, or are you like, is it more similar to like it looked like your VR was actually from documentary filming under the water, or?
Our VR is there. We buy models,
or you buy models. Okay, so it is more kind of game engines.
More game, yeah. Our AR stuff. We have an iOS app that was made with Unity. And we had 2 whales modeled for that specifically. We're finding that we want to move, like, we would prefer to be putting augmented reality things into the browser. The technology is almost there for it to provide a good experience. Actually, if you sort of Google animals, sometimes you'll see a little AR option if they have a model. I think that the support for creating these sort of like wholly web-based AR experiences is getting better. We found that being only available on one platform with our AR was a pretty big barrier.
Yeah. Which platform are you? Is it Apple that you're sort of like?
Yeah. So we just our AR app, which has a whale. It has a right whale and an orca that you can spin around and take a selfie with, or look at its parts, and then also it's a model of the Ropos, which is an underwater robot that collects specimens, and which also has a VR component. So you actually can, with that, have an experience where you are driving the robot underwater, and someone using the VR can see what you would see if you were driving across the bottom of the St. Lawrence. But yeah, iOS is, not everybody has it. We've actually found a lot of support in schools that have been moving sort of away from iPads and into Chromebooks. So our goal is really to make all of our stuff sort of available if you're using sort of like a low cost but internet connected device.
Yeah. Now, and so have you got an in-house team that's been doing that developing, or are you sourcing out to developers outside? And part of the reason why I asked this is uh, I've been looking into the development of an augmented reality app for sort of for a lot of natural and cultural history sort of projects, but the main one has to do with around World War II. And that's the one that sort of catalyzed the sort of the research into it. And so one of the things I've been kind of discovering when we went to look at, you know, the developer side of things is a lot of the sort of companies that do that are streamlining into a specific area, and often it's specific areas that involve money, which classroom education usually is not in. So I've been trying to, look at, do we go the indie route? Do we and so I'm just curious what you guys have been doing. Have you been contracting people in for that, or have you got your own in-house team with that?
So we in-house, we do some sort of interactive websites, but we don't have folks who can do the sort of 3D models.
Yeah.
For those, we've been working with 2 studios. One is Silverback Games. They're on the East Coast. I think they're in Halifax. And the other is Acufin, which is, they're based in Montreal. And they actually built our platform as well. So yeah, we
How do you spell Acufin?
I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, so with Acufin, we've worked with them a lot, and that I think in many ways is more of like a creative partnership than like a pure vendor situation. Yeah. They have a really strong like experienced design team that they always come with cool ideas. So like we send them a brief ahead, and then when we meet, they're usually pretty excited to share their spin on whatever we've suggested.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's exciting to see that the NFB is doing things, like is experimenting in such spaces now. So
yeah,
and doing something a little different that's not, necessarily geared to what traditionally is being the focus. Like when I started in the media space, as soon as I mentioned the word education, people would treat it as though it was less than. It was like I'd said a dirty word at like the television festival. So
yeah, but if you want to get kids interested in sort of media early, it's the cooler the things are that you can show them, the more interested they may be in, creating it or consuming it themselves. So
oh, absolutely. And I mean, it shouldn't be it's long been my belief that I don't understand the philosophy of sort of in the media realm where they think of education as less than. I mean, storytelling is an educational vehicle, and if people are going to learn as well as be entertained and enjoy, that's like, all sorts of positives in my books. Plus, it then also lends to a different marketplace and a different use.
Certainly, yeah. And I think that, we can really push the boundaries of like, I love these experiences. I think they're quite beautiful, and, I think they have their own artistic merits.
Oh, absolutely.
In that way. I saw a question in the chat I just want to answer. You can access Ocean School content online right now. It's free. If you want to see everything that's on the platform, you need to create a free NFB account. But if you don't want to create an account, you have the option to go to oceanschool.ca/home, and there is a selection of our material there that you can see it anytime. Theoretically, I'm supposed to be leading a discussion about supporting inquiry with for immersive media. I'm not sure how many folks are interested in speaking right now. So I may just continue taking questions if there are any. Feel free.
Hi. I think it's so interesting, and there's so many layers to what you're doing. And obviously it's a different audience than a lot of us are working with right now. But I was wondering if there's any like way that we can access any of it. You said that if you build a NFB login that you can access some of it, or do you have any examples that we can actually access online? It's all kind of behind.
So if you, we are trying to move away from our current model, which does require a sign-in, but we're getting rid of it really soon. We finally won that battle. So, sorry, I'm just trying to get out of my presentation here so you can see. If you go to oceanschool.ca/home, this is actually, this webpage was created as our COVID response. We were finding that teachers were saying that they were having a hard time getting their kids like organized and logged on to the platform, especially when they were doing distance learning, which of course this year has been pretty vital. So if you go here, there's lots of content that you can watch right away. Here's an example. So so you can just click these and you don't have to sign in. This is a virtual COD dissection. So you can like grab this guy and this is another simulation which has a data sheet that you can download and check out. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff that is available right now with no need to sign in.
Yeah, no, excellent. Lots to dig in. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions?
I don't have any, but I want to thank you because you've had to fill some extra time that or the conversation that we've had. But as long as we're all here, if people want to participate in a broader conversation, we've got about 15 minutes left, and we can expand just talk about other cool projects. If anybody has some that they want to share. Stephen is learning about the anatomy of the cod. My interest in cod usually is with breading on it and deep fried with some chips on the side. So, I think everybody's really, really super impressed with the project. And yes, your tax dollars at the National Film Board have created this. It's really cool. And there are other ed tech people working on this project too.
Yeah. There are 3 of us that all came from Concordia's program.
But you're not all located here in Montreal, correct?
Correct. Yeah, so part of the team is in Nova Scotia and also in New Brunswick.
How does it work with the remote team? I mean, granted, you're working on a virtual resource, but still you're not physically together. Are there any little hacks that you can suggest about working remotely with one another?
So we have like a 15-minute meeting every day where it's first thing in the morning. So you just check in, say what you're up to, if you need something from anybody. Otherwise, it's just a nice way to see humans at all. Yeah, also lunchtime fun time. This is our COVID innovation, was that we found that we needed to have whatever, 40 minutes every week on Fridays where we just weren't discussing work.
But you were together during your, I mean, because it sounds like it's not Friday, lunchtime fun time, and I'm on my own watching Days of Our Lives or something.
No, we just turn on Teams and sit there and eat our lunches together.
Okay.
But it's also a good time for sometimes we rotate and people will bring in whatever, like a cool website they saw, something that was inspiring. Sometimes we've also started a little like a book club but it's actually for everyone on the team, especially because right now we've been getting ready to launch a module that is really focused on Indigenous content that was developed in collaboration with the Heiltsuk Nation on the Central Coast of BC. And so as part of sort of our learning journey together, we've been, watching different films and just reading books about sort of Indigenous issues across Canada, to sort of, develop our consciousness around those issues. It's been a really good thing, and sometimes this year has been very, very stressful. We tried to we developed a lot of things really quickly that we could release for distance learning, and then we also were very, very delayed with our production. Folks were getting sick that needed to record voiceover and things like that. And so it's really important, I think, to bring in these little moments to connect about stuff that is less stressful.
Anybody else have any other hacks that they've picked up about remote working in this time? Selfishly, I'm always looking for tips, but I just find it really fascinating because I've been following remote working for decades. But I think a lot of, because so many people are working this way now, it's the rule, not the exception, that some real great innovations have occurred that just didn't arise in the past.
Do you have tips about facilitating an event like this online? This has been wild.
Yeah, everybody's nervous. That's the first thing I've learned. It's funny because I've been jotting down notes throughout the day today. One thing we did do, especially me, we went to a number of different events in advance to see, what we wanted. And there seems to be three general categories of virtual events. There's the one that's completely live, like we are. There's the one where they record the formal presentation and they limit you to maybe 15 minutes max, sometimes shorter. But they do live discussions. So I went to one conference, they had 90-minute sessions. The first 40, you were supposed to watch videos. Then the remaining 50, you would be in a discussion. And then there's the other ones where it's basically everything's recorded and they have a few live sessions. And they can't afford the Zoom rooms. So we just chatted. It was, that one everybody hated. Our preference was for this format, obviously, because we chose what we did. So that became interesting. And one of the other things I've learned is when you're you can control things differently when you're face to face. Someone doesn't bring coffee, you can run down and get the damn coffee down there. I mean, politely, obviously, but because systems are set up with permissions, often you have to go through this person to get to this person to get to that person, because even if you wanted to, you couldn't make the change in other cases. And then there's usually just this little hack that the first day that you just aren't aware of. And so things that you thought were in great shape aren't in great shape. So I know to do with rehearsal. A lot of people focus, well, let's rehearse all the speakers. I don't know if that's as necessary when you've got a population that's pretty well Zoom savvy. I think you actually have to rehearse the logistics, which is harder because you have to create this fake, it's almost like what you're doing with the Ocean School. You have to create a simulated environment where people are changing sessions so you can see everything that could possibly go wrong. And it's in that handover of sessions. Now, some of you here are graduates of the EdTech program at Concordia, so you've probably studied HPT or human performance technology and know that one of the biggest areas where there's tension and why people aren't performing well is in the transition of work from person A to person B. And this was like a living lab of that. And it's not to say that someone didn't do their job. It's not as simple as that. It's that there were things that we thought we had under control, but until you do them, you don't know. In the end, I think the other thing that we were really blessed with, everybody is pretty well, very well natured and very and people are really patient and understanding of the unique circumstances that we're dealing with. So I mean, for the most part, we don't have to deal with complainers, all that kind of stuff, which, would only add to the stress. But on a personal level, it's like, well, I want everything to be perfect. And, I know that's not true. You can't do that, but you wish it was more perfect than it is. And so the big lesson is really just plan those handoffs between sessions. I think that would be the biggest piece of advice that I would give. The rest of it is like running an ordinary conference. And make it live. I'd say that's the other thing. Whatever you can do to make it live and make it vital for people. That to me, I don't know. What do you guys think? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with the live format. I am less motivated to watch recordings.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, keep going.
I really enjoyed the virtual hallway too. That was super fun.
Oh, I'm in love with the Wonder Room. Thank God for our conference event planner, who was going to do the face-to-face event. They had to completely retool his virtual event planners, like on the fly. I mean, so it's like total reskilling, and she really got it. And she actually showed us about 5 different products that we could use, but a lot of them required using those really, I'm not a fan of avatars. I think they're dorky. And I supervised a bunch of Second Life things, like, and not surprised, all of them desert islands, but this, I thought the Wonder Room was like, oh my God, that's like a real room. And you can put the wallpaper in there to make it look like a real room, and you interact like you would, and you ignore people, like, and not that you should be proud of that, but I mean, people have to get into conversations. It's just really, really natural. I loved it.
Yes,
Yeah,
we experienced total natural conversation like you would at a conference. That was very good.
I think one of the keys right now with online conferencing, that's sort of the ones that have stood out to me have been anything where you're getting actual engagement, where you can actually have conversations and start getting to know people. And like sort of what you've got with the Wonder Space and what Moz Festival had with Spatial Chat has really been like the most sort of natural way to kind of just break out into going and having kind of the beer and the converse. I just complain that you haven't had it at beer hour in Vancouver yet. So
well, the good thing is apparently when you serve alcohol, all kinds of awful things happen. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. We don't have to worry about we shouldn't be worrying about, like, all of us in Quebec, we're under a quarantine, and I guess in Ontario they have one now too. So many of us, we couldn't go anywhere if we wanted to. So we don't have to worry about drinking and driving. That, I hope, is a very short-term issue.
Yeah, I'd be facetious with that, but
Yeah.
I also thought your end of the day session, like where you had everybody kind of, so you sort of had some icebreakers to get people engaging with each other. I thought that was clever too. Just and that's, yours is the first conference that I've seen something like that done at.
Which is weird because it's hardly an original idea. That's what I find shocking. Stefan, it looked like you wanted to say something. I don't know. I just saw a little light up on your screen. But maybe you're not. Anyway, so want to make sure everybody had a chance to speak. You have weird cues on this thing too, because you get these little lights over people's faces or their squares, and I keep thinking if we just move somebody over, because the way mine, they've got them perfectly like linear like this, but if we can move one person over here, we could play the Hollywood squares. So, well, anyway, talk in terms of networking. Let me just put in a little plug for the next session. At 3:30, we're trying another type of networking session. It's called Birds of a Feather. It's a little bit more work focused in the sense that the questions are, you're actually going to discuss a topic that's related to this line of work, not necessarily your specific jobs. But I hope you'll come because it'll give you a chance to meet some other people and interact in a virtual way that's safe. And yet I hope rewarding for everybody. And we'll bring everybody together at the beginning and bring everybody together at the end so that people have a chance to, if you missed something, you can find out what you missed. So I hope you'll be there at 3:30, get back there through the conference platform. Emily, you want to say any closing words?
No, I was really happy to present today. And it was nice meeting you, Erica.
It was nice meeting you too.
yeah.
I'm so excited by what you guys are doing.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and anyone in the room, please feel free to reach out if you want to talk more about sort of using this kind of media and education. It's always a conversation I'd love to have.
And we love seeing this because it's kind of on the, although it's something that people can use, it's definitely on the cutting edge of what a lot of us do. So it's fun to see some of this. And like I said in the chat, it was like parts of it, you feel like you're walking through an aquarium. It's really cool without the $25 minimum admission fee, I might add. So anyway, thanks everyone for being here. I hope to see you at 3:30 in the Birds of a Feather session. I have to remember the right name. But Emily, I want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation and for inspiring all of us.